Who leaves an executive position with a Fortune 500 company, sells everything, moves to one of the poorest countries on the planet in order to build a deliberately labor-intensive job-creating business, and then directs 90% of the profits to help widows, orphans, and the poor? In addition, who does that in a way that also produces a world-beating product? Well, here's who: Don and Terry Larson, co-founders of Sunshine Nut Company in Mozambique. Stay tuned as we hear the engrossing story of a family that said goodbye to the American dream and hello to joy and impact, right now on the Retirement Lifestyle Show. Welcome to the Retirement Lifestyle Show. I'm Erik Olson, one of your hosts, along with our regular co-hosts, Roshan Loungani and Adrian Nicholson. Today, we're joined by a special guest, Don Larson with Sunshine Nut Company. And we're going to be hearing the story of a genuine high-impact life, both Don and his wife Terry, as well as with the engagement of their kids. The story we think that you, our listeners, will appreciate at many levels about how a life devoted with a specific purpose that you're willing to die for can bring not only transformative results in a community, but also in your own heart and bring a lot of joy. So Don, welcome so much to the Retirement Lifestyle Show. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you. It's so good to be here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been probably, as we have seen from previous episodes of this podcast, that when we have some subject matter as interesting as what you're bringing today, Don, this could go for a while. And so we're going to have to be exercising extreme discipline to stay within the confines of a 60-minute episode. But we're going to give it our best shot. So I just want to briefly tell the story of how it is that I found you. I was listening actually to a podcast of Mike Barr, who does the Business's Mission podcast, or Bear, I think is how he pronounces it. Mike, I'd heard speak at a Business's Mission conference in the past. And for our listeners who are not acquainted with our use of that term from previous episodes, Business's Mission is essentially saying business is itself has typically, of course, it's thought of as having a financial bottom line. But in its fullest glory, business has a lot more that it can accomplish, and it's intended to accomplish, particularly if you approach this from a faith perspective, to be a powerful agent of blessing and change in the world. And so in some cases, a sustainable business that has more of a secular sort of framework might think of it as social, financial, and environmental. What Business's Mission does is it adds an additional element of transformation in that concept. And so anyway, Mike was presenting at Business's Mission, so I was acquainted with him, listened to his podcast, and you were there talking with Mike, and I thought, oh my goodness. So it just happened to be right about the time that I was needing to finally get some gifts out for Christmas. And what I did was I went to your website, I reached out to your staff in the US, and I bought for myself selfishly, but as well for my clients, bags of these cashews. Oh my goodness, Don. These Sunshine Nut cashews are ridiculously delicious.
Yeah.
And I will hear the story of that today. But I was just so glad.
Yep.
Well, you'll tell the reason.
Yeah.
But just so glad to have discovered your work, and the many ancillary benefits, particularly the work that you're doing to combat the effects of a high ratio of orphans and widows and general poverty in the setting that you chose to make as the focus for your business, namely Mozambique. So I wonder if you could just tell us this story. You once upon a time had been working and just progressing at an increasingly higher level within the Hershey chocolate company, and were on a variety of international projects, and cocoa was a big focus to you. You were on what many of our clients would consider a parallel to their own tracks in their own careers, and then there came a moment where you had a period of reevaluation and something changed. Tell us the story.
Yeah, so it actually started when I became a Christian. I think I grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I went to Penn State, got an industrial engineering degree, robotics automation, went into RCA, was in charge of a robotic line that also had 100 employees. And I switched over to a meat processing company where I was head of engineering at the ripe age of 24 years old till about 29. I flew their corporate hot air balloon. I had just a wonderful start to my career and so much work and so many projects and building buildings, installing equipment, that when I went to headhunters, they said, we can't sell you. No one will believe at 29 that you've done everything you've done. And so I had job offers within a week telling them off limits are Hershey, Kellogg's, and Mars. And I had a job offer from Hershey, and I picked Hershey because my father-in-law was a Milton Hershey graduate. He was an orphan, and he grew up in the orphan school, the Milton Hershey Industrial School. And we were close. All the contractors, all the people that I knew, the suppliers, all loved Hershey for their ethical behavior. And so I took the job at Hershey. Well, given all my background, I was like the new fix-it guy. Anything that was helplessly broken, just send Don. And I love that. I love the challenge of, where people think nothing can be done. I go in and, off limits, they keep their hands away, and I go in and do that. I started proving that year after year, and they started giving me different jobs, running factories, different corporate level jobs. It got to the point that they gave me the cocoa job, director of cocoa operations. I didn't want it. I didn't want to sit next to a monitor all day and just talk to the same people about the same thing. It was pretty boring. But there was sheer excitement being on the futures market buying cocoa. And in order to do that, we had to develop fundamental strategies, which got me into Africa. And so my first trip into Africa was 2004. It was crazy. I was a very important person, and they were worried. The village chief's sons we employed for Hershey to do the fundamentals in both Ivory Coast and Ghana. And so they were transporting me around. They had to have me in by dark because I was an important person. And the witch doctors would want my blood and my bones for their potions. And I'm like, you're crazy, That's crazy stuff. Until they got lost and it was dark and they were panicking. And I'm like, this is really strange. And, it was a very interesting trip. I got very sick, and I got back to the U.S. and I'm like, I'm done. I will never return to Africa. But what I saw in Africa was a lot of people with a lot of potential, a lot of not opportunity, a lot of the right environment, but no one to show them what to do. And so that kind of stayed with me. The other thing I did was, I was director of strategic sourcing, director of global sourcing, director of e-business, had a lot of different interaction with outside companies. And Hershey was such an ethical company, but I got a taste of, unethical behavior. I actually left Hershey and because they wanted me to shut down the main cocoa factory that was 100 years old and outsource to companies like ADM and Cargill and all. And so we developed a strategy of opening up a cocoa company with partners, and they ended up not knowing what to do. And so they invited me to be CEO and build this world's largest cocoa processing factory about an hour away in Philly. Little did I know that these foreign owners kind of wanted me to do things were somewhat unethical and inappropriate and all. And I said, I'm not going to do that, and I'm not going to allow you to do that. So it was over a year of them trying to find ways to fire me, and I wanted to leave, but I ended up staying and started everything up wonderfully and all, but they sold the company. But I said, I'm never going to go back into the food industry. I'm done. I was unfulfilled. And that all started with kind of a shift when I became a Christian at 29. I was a hard driving, wanting to be successful, and it transitioned to more the excitement of achievement, okay? Without necessarily worrying about going up the corporate level ladder. Well, I think that attitude made me go up the corporate ladder a lot faster than normal. And so it was that framework that said, okay, I really think I'll go in to do something to help people, maybe missions. I started in seminary, and this was 2007. And I went for about a year and a half, not working, even though I had so many great job offers, kind of on a spiritual journey. And it was probably the most fun time of my life. It wasn't fun for everyone that knew me, including my family, my friends, colleagues are like pushing my wife to say, you got to get Don back on track. He's out in the woods speaking with the animals and birds. Get him back, And I was having the time of my life. But it came to the point that I had someone come up to me in a Christian conference and say, you're going to have a direction from God in 3 weeks, partial direction, and in 3 months you'll have full direction. And I was like, "You're a little strange. That's not used to what I'm used to hearing."
Right.
But I
Who hears
marked days, and exactly 3 weeks from that day, I got, while I was in prayer, almost audibly, build food factories in third world nations to bring lasting economic transformation, and name it sunshine. All right. And so that's not my thinking, nor, that's things that I said I wasn't going to do anymore. And to be obedient, and this is where I love this, the relationship that I fostered with God out in that year and a half. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to be obedient. I built out the model. And in exactly 3 months, through a series of incredible circumstances that can only be God, I was in Tanzania speaking to the leadership of the country about the Sunshine Approach business model that I had developed after that audible, calling. And they loved it. And we were going to do tomato processing and onion dehydration and garlic dehydration to do spaghetti sauce and salsas and things like that. And that's kind of, I went back to my hotel room in Tanzania and Dar es Salaam, and I'm like, Lord, I'd never say never to God, because those are the things that He might challenge you to be obedient on. And so that started this whole effort, or this whole course. That was 2009, 2 years after I kind of surrendered to corporate life and wanted to go on a kind of a shift from success to significance. Okay, so that kind of started this journey to Africa.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I mean, I really like all the stuff that you're bringing up, and you're bringing a lot of important themes and concepts for our listener in general. I mean, you were, so to speak, in the heart of corporate America, but it seemed like when you were going through all this, you were pretty self-aware when it comes to there's got to be more. You're very ethical, you kind of push the boundaries and push the barriers a little bit, other than just kind of just being all caught up in it and looking for achievement, success. When it comes to business, like Erik mentioned, sometimes it's just the bottom line, but you're kind of, through your experiences, understanding that there is a little bit more, there is more to give back, there's more, a little bit of a self-reflection here. I think that's a really valuable lesson to be learned sometimes, where you can't just be super busy or super just focus on a specific area in your life, where it is good sometimes to take a step back, or really question, or really just take some time to really say, is there more? Where am I really headed? And I think that's really important, and that's sometimes very tough for people to do, don't you think, Don?
Yeah, I had a really good life. I mean, I had the best job. I could pick my jobs, and I had a really good job offer from Campbell Soup. They created a senior VP's position to make Campbell Soup excellent. And I said, well, they said, we're going to create the position. It's going to take about 4 or 5 months. Can you take some time off? And I'm like, yes. And that's when I decided during that 4 to 5 months that I wanted to go another direction. But I was flying hot air balloon for 20 some years, 1,000 flights. I had my Porsche. I had, the house with the pool. I had wonderful kids and family. I was always on an adrenaline rush, and it played out in my job. I wanted the toughest, most nasty assignments to turn around. And I learned during that first year of surrender, I did some missions work where me and another guy developed a life coaching program for professional athletes. And we had pretty much sold it into the New York Giants, and we were ready to go out to the Indianapolis Colts and the Atlanta Falcons and Dallas and all. And that's when God pulled me away from that. But not before I discovered a tool that we were going to use with these professional athletes called the motivated abilities pattern. And really, it's a tool like Strength Finders or Myers-Briggs and all that, but it's very individual and intense. You get interviewed by biographers. And one of the things I learned was who I was. And I thought I knew who I was, but it went further. And one of the things that happened after I got this calling, I went back to these guys. They're international. They've placed 100,000 executives around the world. And they wanted me to run their organization because I was so pumped about this tool. But when I told them what I was going to be doing in Africa, they're like, oh my gosh. They're all Christians, okay? Because the whole tool takes you back to your childhood and lets you understand that you do not change. You are programmed from birth with a certain bent and a certain way of doing things and certain passions that don't change. And they made me realize that. Well, they said you couldn't have a better project with what you're doing. And so while it's really tough here in Africa and I'm going through all kinds of uncharted territory and it's risky and dangerous, I am firing on all cylinders and I am completely fulfilled and satisfied. And I searched that out with hot air balloons and flying airplanes and driving fast cars and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, looking for the answer to life. And the answer to life was something that God gave me because he designed me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, you bring up some really powerful points. And like you said, just the amount of risk you're taking, again, from just like your business, your practice, everything you kind of develop, all this like fun and like entertainment, and then you're still finding that and when you go and travel to Africa where there is risk there, like you said, you're traveling in like the dark, you're you have to be careful where you go, you're not familiar with the area, and you're willing to just it's really, you don't really see many people make that type of transition, but you're still finding some very powerful moments in your life, some great memories, some greater achievements than you did early on. And I think that's just a very telling story.
Yeah, thank you. I gave up everything. I sold off everything, my hot air balloon. I watched my Porsche go away, everything gone. We live a very modest life here, okay? Because we don't want to be flashy here, because it's a different environment. So I'm perfectly satisfied. But it is a completely different environment, but it is an environment that I was kind of designed to be in, if that makes sense. And I would encourage everyone to figure out, there are books out there that allow people to discover their passions. But one of the things this group said was, out of the 100,000 people that we interview, about 80, they say 50 to 80%, but it's higher level because they don't want to be provocative. Most people are not within their profession. That's their motivated ability pattern. And what they try and do is match people like astronauts and executives and everything so that when they do place them, it's an effortless job because they love it and they're passionate about it. They don't even think about it as work. Okay? And so that's kind of what God did to me with this project. And there are going to be iterations. I'm going to be doing chocolate in West Africa. I could do tomato processing. There are so many avenues to take care of smallholder farmers in a very intense and provocative way. And you talk about risk. We're going to be entering into the conflict regions up north, where currently over the last 4 years, 4,000 people have been killed, 800,000 people displaced, and certain people are looking for us to bring in solutions to bring peace through prosperity. So I got a new tagline that I'm trying to sell to the retailers of a co-branded item. Project Sunshine, or the Sunshine Project, nuts about peace and prosperity. There's
Oh, that's great.
Number of different plays on that. Yeah.
Well, so I'm just listening. Go ahead, Roshan.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I want to come back to the story, but we're 20 minutes in and we haven't talked about your company yet. So can we start there? Tell us about the company, and then I do want to come back. I have some questions about your transition. So can you just give us a brief history of the company, what you're doing, how you're impacting the community?
Right. Yeah. So Sunshine Nut Company is the obedience to the Lord to name the company Sunshine. I transitioned from tomato processing and all in Tanzania. And there's a lot of stories about that. There's people wanting me to write books about the transition and every aspect of what we're doing. But we transitioned to Mozambique, who used to be number one in cashews in the world back in the 70s, before they had their freedom movement to break away from Portuguese colonialism. After they got out of that, they went into a civil war for 15 years. And during that time, there were some World Bank policies that shifted kind of African processing industry for nuts, largely Mozambique, to India. And India became the number one processor of cashew. Well, I'm looking to bring that back, at least through maybe reputation, quality, to bring back Mozambique to the glory days of their cashew. Because everything was disseminated. The industry was ruined. There's still cashew trees everywhere, but now, and there are efforts and there are factories here, but no one has done a roasted or a retail-ready product in pretty much all of sub-Saharan Africa. Okay, so I came, moved my family in 2011, didn't know anyone. Got a factory site in the free trade zone of the capital city, right outside the capital city of Maputo, and went to work building a brand. The key that I felt was to build the brand first, because when you build the brand, then you can go vertically integrated and do all the work in the villages, all the work. It's really a Milton Hershey model. All right. And I've got an article coming out. There's an article in Christianity Today coming out in a few weeks that really talks about my role model being Jesus and Milton Hershey. But, when I'm calling back to how do I build lasting economic transformation among the poorest, well, obviously it's to take care of the smallholder farmers, that grow crops. And in Mozambique, it's 80% of the population are farmers. And yet the government then says, but 99.9% of those farmers are subsistence farmers. So they're not really farmers. They're just trying to grow something to keep alive, okay? And there's cashews around that they get a little bit of cash income. On average, they say it's $33 a year. What we're doing is nurturing them to go from subsistence farmers into cash crop farmers. And we've got some projects underway to do that. But we built I built a factory. I put in U.S. equipment, had a container. I call it factory in a container. I had everything shipped over in one container and put this factory in place. We are at the highest level of food safety certification. We started the factory up in 2014, immediately went into Whole Foods, Giant, about 2,000 to 3,000 stores in the U.S. And that became something that started when an executive at Whole Foods found out what I was doing, called Hershey and said, hey, can this guy do what he's saying? And they must have said yes. And he came over to visit me. And we had very good conversations. And it started up a wonderful relationship with with Whole Foods. At the same time, an equally important relationship with Ahold. So I went into hundreds of Whole Food stores, and I went into about 800 Ahold stores, and then filtered out through with those successes to a lot of other stores. So we had the market. We didn't realize how difficult U.S. retail would be. I mean, I have a background, at Hershey, but I wasn't aware just how cutthroat and how nasty things could be. Even our first month on the shelves, I had a cease and desist order from a billion-dollar nut company to get my products off the shelf. And I'm like, I'm done. It's going to take $1 to $2 million to represent myself. And luckily, through a network of friends, I had one of the best law firms contacted me basically the next day and say, we'll take your case for free. We went and negotiated, and we were able to stay on the shelves. We did some packaging changes. But it has been one kind of issue after another that we're working through. U.S. retail distribution is one thing. Mozambique and navigating through all those issues is quite another thing. But we've been successful. We've never had a product issue. The reason for the freshness, Erik, and why people loved it is when I brought my cashews to Whole Foods in probably 2013, and I dropped them on the table as I'd go to Whole Foods on a regular basis. The next time I came in to Whole Foods, it was a few months later, I had the cashew bags, and there was the directors of of Whole Foods, and the doors busted open, and I think it was the CEO and another high-level executive came in, grabbed all the cashew bags and said, "Excuse me, we run this company. We're taking these cashews. There's nothing you can say about it." And so they left, and everyone was laughing, and they're like, "Don, you've ruined us. We love cashews here. We didn't know we were eating stale, rotten, soft, nasty cashews our whole life until you came and showed us what a fresh cashew is." And so the reason for that is most cashews, 60% of all cashews are grown in Africa. But 95% of those cashews, and I've got this, are shipped in shell form, okay? So this is a cashew in a shell. It's a rock-hard shell, very difficult to get out. 95% of that volume, the majority, the most in the world grown from Africa, go to Vietnam and India, where they're taken out of the shell into raw form. Excuse me. Oop. And this is the raw form that they put into plastic bags. They put a 2-year shelf life on it. And then they store it. They send it over, 10, 12,000 miles on the water. It stores. And I used to run a Hershey chocolate factory in the north that did chocolate-covered cashews and chocolate cashew bars. They were nasty when we got those cashews in because they were old. What we do is we take them out of the shell, and within days, we put them in a premium package with nitrogen flush. I have cashews that are 6, 7 years old that I open, and they're still fresh. We just went from a 2-year shelf life to a 3-year shelf life. We could actually go to a 4-year shelf life. And sometimes I have to dispose of cashews that I know are just fresher than the stuff that's on the shelf that are fresh from my competitors. So it's a substantially different product, okay? And that has been a success factor for us. When the only thing we need to do is get people to try our cashews, and it takes care of itself.
Well, so then to our listeners, I just want to say, if you want to help with this, there's lots more to this story, and we're gonna keep going. But I just want to punctuate this point. It is to say, go to your local retailer, and I'm going to do this with our local retailer, which is we're here in the Greater Grand Rapids area, and Meijer stores are a big presence in the Western Michigan and throughout the upper Midwest. So I'm going to try to get their buyers to get some of these, and I'm going to get some more bags and get in there and try to make the case, because I think you're right. These are unlike any other cashews that I'd had.
Yeah, and that will work. That will work. Go to your local store and say, we want this, and they will move on that. We're in all the major distributors, so they can easily order product.
Great.
Well, and also the website is sunshinenuts.com, and
Absolutely.
you've got a handy thing on there that says where you can buy it locally, and it's also available on Amazon. So in Virginia, I don't see a store locally that has it, but I have been able to place my order very easily on Amazon Prime, and
Right.
it'll arrive in 2 days. So it is very easy to get.
Now we're in all the Wegmans, so I think Wegmans goes down into. Yeah.
We have actually. I live near in between sort of two different Wegmans locations,
Right.
so I will check that out. I think I looked too far south in Virginia versus the DC suburbs when I looked at your map.
Yeah. Okay.
So Don, you opened this business after pivoting from tomato processing in Tanzania, and so you're now here. You've built up, and with plenty of room to grow, and you've explained there are other projects that you can do. I mean, this is a replicable model in other places and other industries. But let's talk about some of the social and transformational elements of what you're doing. So I didn't understand this previously, but you created the Sunshine Approach Foundation. And so it's the Sunshine Approach Foundation to which you direct the profits from the Sunshine Nut Company. And then it's the foundation which then is activated in a host of these other areas, including I saw you had been granted some land tracts, and with these then you were setting up, was it a 10 hectare farm opportunities for subsistence farmers to grow these cashews, and then you've got the orphans and widows. Tell us more about those aspects of what Sunshine is doing.
While there's a difference between a for-profit and non-profit, so you've got the Sunshine Nut Company and then you've got the Sunshine Approach Foundation. Well, there's no real difference because we do all the philanthropic, non-profit type stuff, transformation stuff within the company as well. And if we make profits, we give 90% back into the communities, okay? So we do that by giving it over to the Sunshine Approach Foundation. Very important concept that I have a team here in Mozambique that are Mozambicans outside the company. And we were going to do a similar company out in the villages. And they're like, we'll give 90% too. And I couldn't believe that they were willing to do that. They're pastors, but they're activist lawyers and a tree planter that heads the Eden Reforestation. It's a California-based tree planting NGO, but he heads that. And so they were going to do that. And as we were discussing all of this, they're like, rather than wait and be profitable at the end, if we can do things during the value chain, that's the right things to do, that's better, and reduce our profits, that's the type of thing that we should be thinking of as well. And I'm like, you got the key to the model. The model is not profit maximization, which tends to exploit and do things along the value chain, especially with smaller farmers, in order to get the result, to give it back. What we do is within the value chain, the right thing. And
well, I noticed. Oh, go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, so what we're doing in the villages right now are all these. We're going into the villages and they're giving us land. Okay, 1,000 hectares in a village of 1,000 people. We started talking about this concept, and all these communities started coming to us. And then the governors started coming. Now, the governors are one step down from the president. I was starting to get governors from the provinces all around Mozambique coming to our factory and say, we want this project in our villages, in our province. And so we're starting in the southern province of Gaza, but we've just been approached by a large oil and gas company that has a $20 billion installation up north. That's where the unrest is. They're like, we'd love to partner with you to put this program in where people have been being killed and displaced. 800,000 people displaced, 4,000 people killed. When you talk danger, that's that is my design. It's like maybe I'm going a little too far going into these regions, but it's nuts about peace and prosperity, and we can use cashews, I think, to bring about, hope and opportunity and transformation.
Yeah, that's
So
important.
one of the things that you mentioned was the not doing necessarily everything in a profit maximizing way, and as one of the things I found interesting was your decision to, in some cases, not use a profit maximizer would say, hey, I can get a machine oftentimes to do something more reliably and less expensively than people can do it.
Right.
But when you do that, you forfeit the opportunity to create employment and to create prosperity within those families that are doing it. So if I understood one of these reports, I think that you had been interviewed, you had said, so therefore we deliberately elected to be deliberately more labor intensive, precisely so that we could have an impact on those families with through the process of job creation.
Yeah, and so this I learned, at Hershey. I'm a robotics automation industrial engineer, my job. But as I went out evaluating different problems, there was over engineering and too much automation, too much equipment. And people like to really go that they like the bells and whistles. A lot of times you break it down, and at RCA, it was very early in my career. It was like a $50 million line. It was 30 million that they were adding on to make it 50 million. And they said, Don, we need you to keep the cameras and monitors and computers and everything going while we do this for a few months. And so I put everything on tables, okay? And I had those 100 employees on a bunch of just wooden tables, passing and doing all this. Well, we beat the production numbers and we beat the quality levels. And the senior level executives like, Don, you just proved that this $50 million automated system is not worth it. We could have done it on wood tables, okay? I carried that over into Hershey, and I realized that when you have low labor rates, there's nothing more intense and valuable than the power of a human mind. And so I have become very good at determining kind of where to use people versus automation. And when you look at so there's no cashews grown in the USA, okay? It's only in the certain geographic regions that are very hot and very sandy and all. But, a cashew, we process the cashews here. If we would be doing that in, say, the US or Europe, it would only be a few people and a lot of automation, okay? Here, we're 10 to 20 times more people being employed to get a lower output, but we still can be competitive if we do it correctly. So you're correct there about this.
Yeah, that's a really great point there, Don. And I think it's really interesting to also bring this up. I learned about this in my integrative study class. When there are outside countries or outside businesses that come into new areas, it's really valuable and really important for them not only to bring in their own models, their own protocols, and their own practices, but to employ other people within those countries they're going in, not only for them to help out, but just to understand the culture more, understand what are some areas where we can both help each other out so we can make more of a cohesive business that can not only generate profits and revenues, but also help the community as well. And you said too that you're willing to also, cut back a little bit on the profits to, bring more value in there. That I think is just really a powerful thing that, I want businesses to be more and more like this every day, just incorporating more of the culture and the societal aspect of other areas. I think it's just really important, other than just coming in, this is how it's going to be, this is how much money we're going to get, and move on from it. I think it's just really important just for the communities and also from a business standpoint.
Yeah, the key is high performing teams. And so we've invested a lot. I've got a staff at this factory. I'm the only foreigner. My son, he just joined the company. So me and him are the ones in the office, and we've got a few other people in the office, but it's all Mozambicans. They make the best cashews in the world. They are the highest level food safety certification. The auditors come in from Europe and they're like, we've never seen a factory run like this. We have nothing to critique to criticize you about. It's amazing. And all the employees know all the different jobs, and they are on top of things. So kind of bucking the stereotype of, oh, yeah, you have all these problems. It's actually an incredibly high-performing team. The issue then is we're going into the villages, and these people have never seen work. And they're living off, they're in sand floors, mud floors, stick walls, grass roofs. But I camp in the villages. I don't go out and stay at a resort or on the beach or go into the small hotels. I make my team camp in tents, and it's very hot and nasty and all at this point in the year. But I want to engage with the communities, and my wife and I are going to move into that community, and live very, very modest. The only thing my wife wants is a running water toilet, and she'll be okay, but I have to rig that up because there's no electricity, there's no running water, nothing. But these people are smart. They just have no opportunity. And when I engage with them and we talk through, and they know all the details about, the zoning and the paperwork and all, and yet they don't have pens or paper to do anything, but they're smart people. And I want to give them the opportunity to shine and to be fulfilled, and give them, dignity and employment, the pride of a paycheck. And really, I'm not going to be employing them. I'm going to create 200 families of entrepreneurs that I'm going to give them the mechanisms to grow the cashews, but also to process them themselves. And then Sunshine Nut Company will come in and buy them from the foundation. So these projects in the villages will be the nonprofit because of the risk involved. And that's where, it's a separation from the company. But anything that we make in that village stays in that village and just uplifts the standard of living. So I'm hoping that it'll be profitable in these villages and these concepts, so that in addition to the money coming in from the company sales, we're generating very good incomes for everyone, but also some extra money that we can also pour into the communities, into the schools, clinics. There's nothing there. There's no clinics. There's no dental, medical. There's no banks. There's no electricity. So we have a lot of opportunity to make improvement.
So I have a few other questions, but I've asked a lot of the questions. And Roshan, you've asked fewer. Is there a question on your mind that you want to pose?
Yeah, I definitely have a bunch. So Don, I want to take you back to when you started this year. How did you fund the company? Was selling the home, the Porsche, the hot air balloon, did that money go right into starting the business?
Yeah, I did something dumb. I lived for many years on my own income rather than putting it into the company, as a capital flow in, but I got a lot of friends that helped me, and so I've gone deep into debt because what I've learned, it's very, very costly to build a brand. Okay. And so we're right at the point of profitability. And I've had to shift the business because the business is going a lot of store label and private label. And so we're shifting our brand. We're taking on store brands. We're doing co-branding. We're going away from a very competitive U.S. model. Oh, actually, we're not going away from it. We're rapidly growing that. But we're shifting to Europe, Middle East, Asia, and Africa, and under a different model where we sell FOB factory and send containers to distributors who then market our product and introduce them into other marketplaces. Okay? And so, it's those types of things. It's an incredible cash cycle when you're in Mozambique and you have to procure cashews, you have to make them, you got a month and a half on the water, you carry an inventory of 2 months, and then when you sell them, you've got 30-day payment cycle. So you've got 5 to 6 month cash outlay. So any growth has to be fueled with cash. And so that's been some issue for me. And so we're getting better at understanding that and supplementing it with other business that allows us to get paid up front.
Got it. So you've had to pivot the business a little bit there. Another question, going back to when you started.
Yeah.
Were you thinking about, while you were working in your corporate career, were you feeling unfulfilled and as if you needed to make a transition and the company being acquired that you were running led to that? Or was it something after the acquisition you had a realization that you wanted to do something different?
No, the unfulfillment started in my 30s. Okay. And it was just a feeling like, what am I doing with my life? I was with the best company. I had the best jobs. Everything was good that way. But I just felt like I was created to do something different, something better, something more significant, and, I was lucky enough to find out what that was, but all along, at Hershey hired a new CEO that was outside the company. He started to change the culture. And one of the things I loved about Hershey was the culture. And I felt I can't hang around and see this culture change because it's everything to me. And now I've taken the culture of Milton Hershey, the business of taking care of the farming communities, taking care of orphans, and I've added in widows because there's such a prominent amount of vulnerable women and widows in Mozambique. So what we've done with that 90% is we're building houses in Mozambican neighborhoods. 10% of the population of Mozambique's orphaned. So we are pairing up, probably another 10% of the population is vulnerable women. We pair up a widow with 5 to 6 orphans and create a family, put them in a home, and nurture them with private school and everything. And so far, we have about 5 homes now. We'd like to see hundreds of homes, similar to Milton Hershey, who has probably put hundreds of thousands of kids through school, like my father-in-law graduated in 1955. So I got these inklings of, I want to do something more significant, but I felt that it was going to happen through being kind of a missions orientation or a pastor or whatever. I went through that and God said, no. Very clearly, with people coming up to me and through prayer and time out in the woods and everything, said, you're not going to go and become a pastor. We're going to put you back into business, and you're going to do things, business, I'll say God's way, demonstrating that business can be this source of radical love and transformation, and that the business model can jumpstart prosperity in a targeted geographical region, and the factories that I'm putting in the villages, it can be engines of transformation, so it's something that we're looking to positively impact the entire value chain. And right now, when we go vertically integrated, we're going to be interfacing directly with the farmers all the way to the consumer, and especially the retailers. I've got one retailer that is going to somewhat adopt us, maybe do a co-branded item with us, but really, quite a number of retailers do this. They kind of fit us into a unique supplier category. But I'd like to go further with that because of the nature of what we're doing with the poor, the widowed, and the orphan, and the transformation of those 3 categories from being probably the most neediest people in the world to hopefully the most fulfilled or drastically changed lifestyle into something more dignified and fulfilling.
Now, listeners, I just want to highlight a couple things that Don just said. Number one, there is a Sunshine Nut YouTube channel. And so you can get a lot more stories and see very vivid stories of some of these the sunshine houses and the pairing up of these widows and these orphans and the formation of a stable environment for both of them and what's happening there, as well as videos on the business and a great set of blog posts. I think I read every single blog post on your website, Don, and so that was also very instructive as well. And then also one other thing that you said just about the Hershey company. I think it's a beautiful thing that there's this legacy of people modeling using business in a bigger and more fruitful way than just a financial impact, and that you had that as an influence and as a concrete representation of something that someone had actually done, and the way in which he had parted with his wealth in order to fund that vision as a long-term legacy is also a beautiful story. So hopefully some of our listeners will hear your story as well, Don, and feel that calling and that impulse to deploy their considerable talents in many cases in service of something beyond their career, either once that career is coming to a close or perhaps even mid-career. I love that tool that you mentioned. I'm thinking maybe what I should do is get a hold of that tool and use that with a number of my clients to help them conceptualize, rather than retiring from, it's retiring to the next chapter of a very fruitful and high impact role in some way.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. So Roshan or Adrian, other questions?
All right, Don, I have to ask this. You move, you sell everything, you move, and then I read that you get held up with your family with an AK-47 in front of your house. Yeah. So can you just tell us that story, and then tell us, how did you not pack your bags and fly back right after that happened?
Yeah, that was about a year into our move here. We had my son was visiting. He was actually living with us now. So when we moved here, 3 of us came, my wife and I, and then my 13-year-old boy. He had no choice. He had to come. But I had a 17-year-old boy that was in his senior year of high school. He elected to stay his entire senior year with a family that we knew. But he came and he was with us at the time. But we had a high school missions team from the school that my wife taught at, as a Christian school, and they were here visiting, and we were coming home. We had refueled both cars, and I was actually home already. My wife had to go out and do something, so she took my son out. And on the way back, I was actually resting in bed. My older son was in the house, and my wife came through the gate, and guys with AK-47s came through the gate after her. And so my son couldn't get the gate closed in time, and they proceeded to hold my family hostage. And so my wife started screaming. I had headphones on and everything. My other son burst into the room and said, "Mom's out screaming. There's someone out there." And so I grabbed my nunchucks. I grabbed my I had a lot of self-defense training when I was younger. That's part of the thrill, I think, as well, of my type of personality. But I also had a stun gun, and I went running through the house out the front door. I only had boxers on, and I go bursting out the front door, and there's a guy about 8 feet away from me with an AK-47 pointed at my head, screaming profanities at me in broken English. And so I dropped everything. He proceeded to bring me into the house. My family was held by the other guy on the driveway. They kneeled on the driveway. We had a couple dogs that were licking my family's face. They didn't do much, for us from a guard dog standpoint. But he took me in, and he was taking me around the house, and I was actually in peace. I was surprised at how peaceful I was. I wasn't really nervous. And he started to, he wanted me to find the car keys, to the cars. And so I couldn't find this one set of car keys to my nice, about 20-year-old four-wheel drive, but it was nice to me. And he couldn't find the keys, so he started jabbing me with the gun, and he started to count down kind of the end of my life. If I don't get the keys, he's shooting me. And so, he's going, I think he started like 40. I can't remember exactly, but he's getting down to like 12, 11, and I yell out to my wife, "Terry, where are the car keys?" where are the car keys? And my wife responds back, and she's being held on the driveway. She's like, Don, I tell you all the time to put your keys in one spot because someday you're really going to need them and you're not going to know where to find them. And I remember when she got done talking, I was down to like 4, 3, 2, and I'm like, that's gonna really hurt her to be the last thing she ever says to me. And so the guy got to 0. He looked at me. I looked at him like, okay, what's next? And he started counting again. And I quickly found the keys. And, they sent my family inside. And then they said, okay, you stay here. And I'm like, okay, he's going to be upset about the nunchucks because he picked up the nunchucks. He had them around his neck. He got a good gift from me because they were nice ones. And I thought, okay, he's going to shoot me here and then go off in the cars. But they just wanted to know what the alarms were. And so I showed them that there were no alarms on both cars. And I remember I had to take like 5 or 6 steps to get around and be safe. And I remember walking those steps like, please don't shoot me in the back. And they left. I went inside. I'm like, okay, I have to make sure my family's okay. So I run in. They seem to be okay. They're sitting there wide-eyed looking at me. And you know how when your kid falls when he's little and they look for the parents' reaction? If you say, oh, then they start crying. If you say, get up, they get up and they don't think twice about it. So I'm like, whoa, that was intense. Cross that one off my bucket list. I've been held up, And they just looked at me like, but, we really didn't suffer I don't think any emotional trauma from that, because our life's tough. This is not for the faint-hearted here. But a week later, we moved the next day, because we had some robberies and some different things go on. So we went into a more protective environment. And I remember a week later, I was going home from the factory to have lunch with my wife. And I wanted, on the way home, I was just praying. I'm like, Lord, why did you do that? Why was that necessary? That didn't help anything. And this audible, it's these thoughts that come in. You understand that the voice of God is in gentle whispers and all. And what was very interesting is, I'm not thinking this, but almost audibly, these thoughts come, you never once flinched. You never thought about quitting. You never thought about going home. And I am so proud of you. And to this day, I can get emotional thinking about it because I sat there. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. Almost as if it was a proving ground, to say, you can do this no matter what because I've got your back. And I felt in complete peace during this whole situation that I'm like, wow, was that just, preparing me to go to the next level and the next level, and so now we're going into a very dangerous area. If I lose my life, I'm losing it doing what I want to do and what I know I've been created to do. And whether the legacy is established or my family takes it over because they, my wife and my son and my daughter all work within the company. The other one's off doing tax stuff as a senior tax analyst. I hope he'll join me. But I know that what I'm doing is what I should be doing. And that gives me peace of mind. That gives me, despite how tough it is, I know that I need to move forward and there's no turning back. And there's nothing but walking forward.
Wow. Well, great question, Roshan, and phenomenal response, Don. So we are coming up on the end of our time here, and so I want to just make sure that people know how they can follow you. I don't think we've left that unclear, but folks, it's www.sunshinenuts.com. There's so much about the story there, as well as the products, as well as the local retail locator for you. So Don, you also mentioned Twitter and a couple other ways. How would people best follow you or get in touch with you?
They can use info@sunshinenuts.com. They can It's don@sunshinenuts.com is my email. We're doing a lot of progressive things. We need partners. You can buy the product. You can also partner with us. We've got some very creative ways of funding both the company and the foundation. It is a philanthropic company. So we found a way through the Sunshine Vision Fund, which is a fund that's run by another foundation, the Capstone Legacy Foundation. And what they are able to do with people who give charitable donations into that Sunshine Vision Fund, they are able to either give a loan to the company, a low-cost loan that will be repaid back into the Sunshine Vision Fund. So we qualify as it's called a program-related investment, a ministry charity project, because of the nature of what we do as a company. But when we pay back the Sunshine Vision Fund, everything then is redirected into the foundation eventually. Okay? So we have the choice in the Sunshine Vision Fund. Does the foundation need money for all the philanthropic work? And in this case, all the work in the villages is key, of getting these donations so that we can do all this transformation and employment through these mini factories and community farms. Or we do it with the company, which gives the 90% into the foundation as well. So, I like to think about, most people give money and it's like they're given golden eggs, and they just keep giving. There's no sustainability. There's no, end game. It's just continuous giving. Well, what we're doing is, I like to liken it to, we're raising the golden goose, the goose that lays the golden eggs. So you give donations and we build things that are sustainable and give in perpetuity, and so that's the model that we're trying to establish, a very responsible stewardship of donations.
So just on that note, so a lot of our clients, they've heard us explain both here, our clients with us individually as advisors, and as well as our listeners have heard us sing the praises of using a donor advised fund.
Yes.
And in order to get more of a tax edge and impact from that, to cluster your donations so that you make sure if you give on alternate years or every third year or whatever the frequency is, gifting highly appreciated assets so that you can also avoid some capital gains taxes and what have you. We're really trying to help clients not only have the spiritual benefit or the heart benefit of it, but also a tax benefit from it as well. So we use some of we've recommended to our clients a number of the big charitable foundations, Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard Charitable, but as well as National Christian Foundation. So let's say someone has a donor advised fund at National Christian Foundation. Would they be able to earmark this Sunshine, you said the Vision Fund,
yes,
or either this or the Sunshine Approach Foundation, one or the other? Would they be able to designate that as a make a grant through the fund to that?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's what we're not personally benefiting. I used to be very rich.
Understood.
I'm like, I've drained everything, and I'm perfectly fine doing that. And the rest of my life, we've resigned ourselves to living within the communities in ways that I find much more fulfilling. But the charitable contributions, we've had people give from those very organizations, okay, and into the Sunshine Vision Fund, or they can go directly into this Sunshine Approach Foundation, which the Sunshine Vision Fund, eventually it ends up there. But we're doing a lot of things needing to grow the company as well to match what we're doing now in the villages, with all the cashew farms and the factories and all. So the foundation, our Sunshine Approach Foundation, is a 501c3. It's registered, and they can do that as well.
But so then, given what you've just said, the Sunshine Vision Fund could be a destination for funds directed through a donor advised fund, but it would give you at the corporate level the opportunity to deploy those in some of those job creating mechanisms that technically the Sunshine Approach Foundation itself isn't tasked to do.
Yeah.
So it gives you more flexibility. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Now that
Okay, fantastic.
yes. So,
Well,
what I heard was there's so much money being tied up in donor advised funds. People are looking for good opportunities,
yeah.
and I like to think that we've got one of the best out there. We have won, if you've ever heard of a B Corp, okay?
Yes.
So
And you are one, if I'm
we
not
have been
mistaken,
one
are you not?
since 2016. Every year I was going to the Responsible Business Forum at Oxford, because they love what I'm doing, and Mars and Danon and all are there, and I've spoken and all. I've spoken at the Nobel Peace Prize Forum, the World Economic Forum, at the United Nations. I blew them away with my testimony that the top official at the UN wanted to hear my testimony on the way to the Christ the Redeemer statue in Rio de Janeiro, because I was given a silver medal at their award ceremony for business through peace. Okay, so I'm speaking at all these places, and the key to this all is they're all looking for substantive ways and solutions that bring peace, bring transformation, and a large-scale project. And I like to believe that we're one of the best. The B Corp, we have, there's 4,000 companies that have the B Corp. When we initially got our score, it was so high, it was off the charts, that they fought with me to get it down, and so they got the score down. But every year we win the Best for the World designation, which is the top 10% of B Corp. With what we're doing in the communities now, I want to be the top 10, not the top 10%, of those B Corps. And it's just an amazing solution that if you want to come over, I'll invite the listeners. If you want to be a partner and you want to see what we're doing, most of the people who have come here, they cannot believe the magnitude of the holistic solution that we're implementing. And what we love to do is show that off, to have them visit our kids that have been raped and beaten and everything, and they're taking them off the streets. They are now the most balanced kids. The struggling women are now in the community doing programs for the community and bringing in all the kids from the community. I mean, every aspect of what we're doing is transformational, from employees to farmers to orphans to everything, where when people call, doctors call, we're like, we want you to train the doctors all around the community. Teachers, every year we bring a teacher team in. They go to all the schools and they teach the teachers. I could go into much more, but everything that we do as a company and as a foundation is transformational. And that's why that quadruple bottom line of not just we're financial, environmental, and social. And social is more like charity, but then transformational is more philanthropic and changing things for long-term effect, okay? That you're having a profound difference, and you're not just treating symptoms. You're getting the source of the problem and changing thousands of people's lives in the process.
Wow. Don, it's impossible to thank you enough for being a guest on our episode today. I have to imagine that our listeners today are just absolutely glued to their earbuds to kind of hear all of these stories and so forth. Listeners, I just want to say this is an episode to share. Now, maybe Adrian, Roshan, and I are a little vain, and we think all of our episodes are worth sharing. Yeah, there's maybe that. But this is absolutely an episode to share. So send this episode to those of you people in your life that you know would benefit from hearing a story of this kind of impact. And don't let it stop there. Dig in, learn more about Sunshine Nuts, get to your local retailers, promote the product. And I encourage you to take a deeper look at making Sunshine Vision Fund and or Sunshine Approach Foundation a destination for some of the capital you've been entrusted, to make that a way in which you can manifest your own impact out into this world. And then finally, in terms of just connecting with Don, and since you've now received this invitation information, if you want to have a partnership role with Sunshine Nuts and the other work that's going on, I would encourage you to take a hard look at making a visit to Mozambique and seeing precisely what Don has just described. This has been great. Roshan or Adrian, anything else that you want to make sure that we note before we close?
No, just Don, thank you very much. This has been great. I really enjoyed hearing about your journey and stories and how you're helping the community, the country, etc. Thank you.
Yeah, same with Roshan said. Thank you for sharing your story, your experiences, your memories. Was all great content, and I'm sure our listeners will draw a lot of value at it. I'm definitely glad you found your keys, and I hope you find your nunchucks one day. I'm sure they're somewhere down there.
I have a few pair. I keep them wherever it's strategically needed. Yeah, and Erik,
that's great, Adrian.
Thank you for sending those out to your clients. We've had quite a few people do that for Christmas gifts. And it goes over really well, and we get a lot of wonderful feedback from those gifts being given. So I appreciate that from you as well.
Yeah,
Roshan,
absolutely.
It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Roshan, you want to close us out?
Well, yes. So first, thanks again, Don, for joining us. To all our listeners, please like, subscribe, give us 5 stars, tell your friends and family, and as Erik said earlier, share the episode. Don can be found, as he mentioned, on Twitter and his YouTube channel. You can just search Sunshine Nut Story, and that'll come up on YouTube. The website is sunshinenuts.com. You can find where to buy locally or get it delivered via Amazon. And you can find us if you want more episodes or more information on the retirementlifestyleshow.com. We'll have links to Don's websites as well as show notes. And thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Retirement Lifestyle Show.